The first best of three today is up against the Spud House. I brought a build very similar to Falcon's recommended builds, countering the Lizardmen. Now, most people say this matchup is quite terrible. I think I would agree, but not impossible, I think, as long as these giants can actually get the damage that I'm looking for. There is a Krokgar with the Hand of the Gods immediately sniping out Mogre, actually. A pretty bad choice, as he does have magic resist and missile resist. He is basically unkillable with missiles. I think Hand of the Gods too, with his regeneration. There's a lot that keeps Mogre alive. Generally, you don't try to snipe him out, even in melee combat. He's just very hard to kill. So already a pretty nice win, and there's not too many Lizardmen troops, just a few Saurus warriors. So I think the plan right now, I'm gonna get rock dropped by all of the. I'm gonna get rock dropped by the pterodons, but that's not especially worrisome, as they will be taking a lot of damage on the approach, and I can do some dodging maneuvers to increase my ability to fight off these pterodons. Although I think if I wait too long, they'll probably eventually kill off my archers. So I'll definitely have to be a tiny bit careful. However, that will stall for time, hopefully long enough for this Cygor summon to kill some Saurus warriors. It's actually a very low amount of there's a very low amount of single entities for the Beastmen in this situation. So I feel fairly confident here. I just need to make sure that the giants don't take too much damage from these skirmishers. So I'll use Mogre to summon some chaos spawn behind them, but it actually takes a little while to go down, and those chameleon skinks do manage to escape. It's definitely a little bit painful, but nothing I can't manage. Now, my Razorgors need to be helping win the frontline fight, so I'll send them in, and we'll see if they're able to do that. I'll be splitting them up, and then using the giants to go ahead and fight Krokgar, like so. And with the chariot, I think I can even chase off a few of the skinks. The Razorgors will want to be cycle charging, and I'm using them to I'm using them to cycle charge different groups of Saurus warriors, hopefully routing them off. The Cygor will be disintegrating soon. And as for Krokgar, it does look like he will manage to escape. And he's actually diving in on Mogre now. Like I said, in melee combat is probably the easiest path to killing him. So I'll want to disengage with him. And then now I'm going to see if I can kill off Krokgar. He is surrounded. The chameleon skinks are being occupied by my chariots. And there is a giant stuck in the fight with him, so as long as I can actually win that battle, I'm feeling fairly confident. There are still a bunch of pterodon riders in the sky, and they'll be able to pick off my giants, but it might not matter, as Krokgar actually looks like he's going to be getting finished off here. There's no AoE to really punish the situation, as the Lizardmen have gone for Manticores instead. So that's looking like the win that I needed to pull out here. The pterodon riders too are fairly low on ammunition, just due to the long skirmishing against my archers. So the giants may very well be able to come out on top here. As for Krokgar, I'm going to chase him off with my chariots. He does have pretty high leadership and is prone to coming back into the fight. So I'll really want to chase him off to make sure I get that sweet leadership debuff on the Lizardmen. As for the giant squad, you can see now they are getting slowly picked apart. So the goal is just to get them fighting as much as possible. My chariots too actually get routed off, which is a little bit of a problem. So I'll have to be a little bit careful here. There is a lot of Lizardmen infantry left. And well, yeah, essentially that. There's a lot of Lizardmen infantry left, and I don't have any chariots or cavalry. Almost a worst case scenario. But my chariots do come back, thank goodness. Not sure exactly what made them rout, but now that they're back, I'll be able to use them to begin cycle charging. Not to mention, I still have a few giants here, and they are able to hurt the leadership of the lizardmen. A few rallying forces too, and as long as the pterodon riders don't snipe out my chariots, I think I'm okay. Let's see, they're still at fairly high HP. A Hand of the Gods could come down and kill a few. Still have to be careful. I think a Hand of the Gods does hit my giant instead though, which although painful does mean that the more important and higher value chariots do live. Of course the chariots are cheaper than the giants, but I do call them high value just because they are rather good at just because they're pretty good at cycle charging. So with enough micro, I think they should be able to do okay. Pterodon riders do dive in onto my caster. Hopefully he holds long enough to use the rest of his winds of magic, but if not, that's something I can live with. As for my other giant, it does get routed off. But I do have the chariots now in play. They'll be slamming into the infantry, trying to get them to rout as best as possible, and staying away from any ranged missiles. They don't want to be getting hit by skinks for sure. The pterodon riders will be routing off a good number of my rallying troops too. But not all is lost. I have really punished the infantry for the lizardmen. And it looks like I have a bit of a core here of rallying units, which is definitely very good. The goal now is to finish the job on Krokgar, and then I should be good to go. I have another cast with my Vile Tide also, and we're going to hit the chameleon skinks with that, just to try and kill off models. But really the main important win is this kill on Krokgar. Will I be able to finish him off? He does get routed, and that is a huge leadership break for the lizardmen. So I'm thinking I might have just barely pulled it off, although it was from a misplay on my opponent letting Krokgar get caught. And even worse, it looks like he may even rally at 80 HP. Like I said, Krokgar is very prone to coming back into the fight, but a few Razor Gores in the mix should be able to rout him off on the charge. A few archer shots too to help, just to make sure these guys don't get terror routed, and I think I'll be good to go. There we go, and a single volley from my Ungor Raiders does finish off Krokgar. It looks like I just barely managed to win it. Oh boy. Let's see, at this point, it looks like the Spud House deciding to stay in the fight means that he does feel that there is still a chance. I'll have to be a tiny bit careful. These pterodon riders could cycle charge me and cause a lot of problems, but really the biggest threat against them is Mogre at very high HP and combat stats at 55-45. He's basically he's not going to be, he's going to be very hard to kill off. Mogre is yeah, he'll be able to fight pterodons. Their stats are pretty low, 26-22. So even with cycle charging, I'm not too worried there. There are a few skirmishers too. They'll be able to pick off my Koroks Man Rippers. But at this point, I think we're pretty good. Let's go ahead and take a look at chat. Did I just beat Lizardmen as the Beastmen? I did. Although Krokgar sort of threw away his life. So it was a very close game, even with a pretty big misplay on the Lizardmen side. Sorting dominance indeed. Oh boy. It was a rough one. I think the Spud House also hasn't played this matchup before, so that's also a pretty nice advantage. Oh, yeah, and for anyone wondering, the streams are an hour earlier now. I do have to live with daylight savings time. So for anyone who didn't have to go through that, the stream will indeed be a tiny bit earlier than usual. And there we go. Routes from the Lizardmen. GG. And well played, but that single loss was pretty rough. Poor old Krokar. I think in the future I will want more anti-skirmisher potential. Maybe a few more Ungor Raiders. But this build worked out fairly well. If you look at the value of everything, they did quite good. Even the Giants did okay, despite getting shot for most of the battle. So I think that was all right. But if Spudhouse had been a little bit more veteran in the matchup, I'd be worried for sure. So here we go. Greenskins without a caster. Turns out I totally forgot to bring magic once again, but I did bring cavalry, and I did have a nice long talk about how to micro them. One of my clanmates told me the other day, I think it was Call Harmon, that or no, it might have not been Call Harmon. Anyways, one of my clanmates told me the other day about one of the mistakes I was making with my cavalry micro. And that's that they were actually, they don't get microed like dogs, which was my main downfall. I sort of treat every mobile unit like scurvy dogs. But the main problem is that they don't clump up well on single units. If 2 units of cavalry charge a single unit of infantry, it's almost as effective as 1 unit. So you can bring 2, you can bring 1. To charge, and it'll basically be the same. Instead, what you want to do is split them up into separate forces, unlike the dogs. So I'll be doing that to charge these Chaos Marauders and trying to keep them as spread apart as I can. I'm also noticing there's a heavy flank overload of cavalry along the side for my opponent. There are quite a few Chaos Knights, a few dogs, some let's see, tons of hounds actually. So I'm going to turn my infantry to deny that flank overload, and then I should be good to go. My skirmishers too are very proficient versus this Chaos Dragon Lord, and they'll be able to counter skirmish very well too. So I'm not too worried here. I do lose all of my catapults though, just due to some missed micro and not realizing that they were getting munched down by some Chaos Warhounds. Not a great situation. Some buffs actually coming down for Chaos too. I'm not sure what. Looks like, oh, Apocalyptic Charge, yes. The ability for the Chaos Knights to actually give an insane amount of movement speed. This is sort of it's an interesting skirmish build from Chaos, but will they have enough to deal with my Boar Cavalry? Is a question. There's a lot of skirmishers here and very little in the way of infantry. So I'd be a bit worried about having enough to actually kill off all my cavalry. A lot of the hounds have already gone down, and the Chaos Knights too run into some problems up against most of their fights. They're actually a very expensive unit and will generally trade out pretty badly up against many other units of cavalry, as long as that cavalry has AP. And we're seeing here these Swords of Chaos are already beginning to take a decent amount of damage, trying to disengage from my Boar Boys, but a Wa will be able to help out in that situation a ton. I also have some Black Orcs at the ready. They'll be eating some ammunition from the skirmishers, and generally doing pretty well. My Ragnarok Queen is also quite the threat against Chaos, and especially in a skirmisher type build, I can just throw down spider summons for days, and they're going to be chasing off these Warhounds. It's almost a guaranteed kill on the Warhounds, or rout at the very least. And with the spider summons, I can easily chase them off without having to worry about losing more of my expensive units. I'll have to be careful with the Arachnarch Queen though. It's actually a bit out of position, so I'll pull it back into a safer place. Now as for all these Chaos Knights, they do get a pretty nice charge onto my cavalry. Getting in quite a bit of damage, but a big play is about to be made. I can throw down some Fanatics, and that should kill off all the hounds over there. So I should be good. That is huge amounts of damage. The cavalry is very low. The hounds are routing, and I can chase them off with my skirmishers. As for this fight against the Chaos Knights, Grom is fully surrounded. I'll need to keep an eye on him, make sure that he doesn't get killed off there. But I think I'm doing pretty good, specifically because of the Arachnarok Queen. So as long as Grom doesn't die, I think I'll be okay. But the Dragon Lord is incoming. It looks like he might go for a sniping on Grom. So I'll need to win this fight as quickly as possible against the Chaos Knights with lances. I'll throw down another summon too, just to stop these skirmishers from participating in the battle. And then I should be good. The Grom, he does get charged by the dragon. And it looks like he will likely get routed off. Some very big hits initially. And that is going to be a big problem on my leadership. But still, this will only work if this Dragon Lord manages to stay alive. Which he might. He is quite mobile. And he could escape the Arachnarok Queen, but the poison effect will pose a bit of a problem here. We'll see if I'm able to snipe him out. It looks like maybe not. The Chaos Knights with Lance is actually coming in to help defend. We'll be sacrificing their lives, which is a pretty nice win for me. But it will keep the Spud House in the game once the Dragon Lord actually escapes. So he's still in a bit of a tight situation. I'm going to charge in with goblins now, and they're going to pin him down and hopefully slow him down enough for my queen to actually finish him off. I have another summon at the ready too, and I'll use that to keep chasing off the skirmishers. And the reason for that is because the skirmishers are the biggest threat for my Arachnarok Queen. So we really don't want her to be taking too much damage. And by pulling them away, that puts me in a pretty good place. Now, the Chaos Lord is routing. He's not off the battlefield yet. But to save him, some more skirmishers are brought in to actually hold up my units. But that might not matter, as I do have skirmishers, and they're going to be moving into position to escort that Lord off the map. With that, it looks like another army losses for the Spud House, and a victory for me. Although, things still got pretty dicey there. I did lose Grom. I almost had tons of leadership breaks across my army. But I managed to pull through. The Chaos Knights with lances were actually tankier than I would have thought. I feel like my Orc Boar Boys would have done better there, but they actually held up really well. Still, my Boar Boys did pay for themselves, so even though they did die, seems like I'm getting better on the cavalry front. And of course, these 8-peak loonies. Ever the very valuable unit, 1500 damage value. Doing almost as well as my Arachnarok Queen. So there we go. On to the next best of 3, I guess. So here we go. Second match up against Ice, or first match up against Ice Power. I brought a skirmish build. Or a pretty mobile build. Definitely a lot of cavalry up against his forces. He does have a few Black Ark Corsairs, which will stop my throwing axes from getting in too much damage. Scourge Runner Chariot to punish my cavalry too. I'm going to be dodging a bit, try and keep them safe. These Corsairs, really the main way of dealing with them is cycle charging them with cavalry. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Splitting up my cavalry, trying to get charges on them. And it also looks like Ice Power has gone for his classic Marathi double Manticore build. Countering that is going to involve keeping my single entities nice and far away from them, and also spirit leeching those Manticores as much as I can. Now, remember the rule of thumb, your cavalry does not clump up. You keep them separated. And as long as I do that and stay away from the Marathi blob, I'm feeling fairly confident. The Manticore too, slowly getting worn away with the Spirit Leeches, will definitely be a pretty big help. And I can begin running away with some of my troops to kite away against these Dark Riders. Now, some of my Centaurs, ROR, do get caught up in the fight here up against Marathi. It looks like they're actually losing that fight pretty badly. So I'm going to go and pull them out. And as for my caster, he's going to go back and continue spirit leeching those Manticores. Looks like I will be able to catch out some Scourge Runners too. And I'm doing decent in the infantry fight, but definitely not as good as I would want. So we'll have to see how this goes. Manticore now taking another Spirit Leech. The goal is to get them to rampage. So let's see if I can pull that off. Once they rampage, they'll dive in onto my infantry like so, and then I can actually start picking them off, thus winning any single entity battles. So let's go ahead and charge that Manticore with my heroes while Marathi is distracted, and hopefully things go okay. I've chased off most of the Dark Elf forces. Most of their infantry is also gone. I've killed off a Manticore. I'm feeling fairly decently confident here. But still, it's going to be a hard-fought battle. And let's see. Even though I've killed off one Manticore, there is still Marathi and another that could come in and definitely ruin my day. So continuing to run away with my skirmishers is going to be very important, as they definitely want to be they definitely want to not get caught by all these Dark Riders. My caster too, actually getting charged by Marathi, is gonna have to run for his life. And at least the left flank looks like it's holding up pretty well. One of the Manticores does come back too, my caster. Getting in a little bit of trouble. Looks like these Slaanesha's Harvesters are diving in on top of him. But if he lives, I can focus on Spirit Leeching instead. The Chariots too are still alive. And that is not great. Looks like they'll be able to chase off some of my cav. But I still have quite a bit of mobility left. So on that front, I'm fairly confident. This Manticore is very low too. And I think I can probably Spirit Leech it to death. It does dive in onto Mogre though. And it looks like a big engagement is about to get underway. Looks like a snipe on Mogre gonna be coming down. I do have my Chaos Spawn summon, so he may still be okay. Manticore does land, however, and that's the perfect time for a Chaos Spawn summon, if I've ever seen one. I'll Spirit Leech the Manticore, and we'll see how this goes. Summon Spawn is down, and Mogre is going to be running for his life, trying to find a safer position. As for these Slaanesha's Harvesters, they are slowly going down. And Mogre, it does look like he's getting punished by this Manticore quite a bit. But with the Chaos Spawn summon, he should be able to stay fairly safe. Some Slaanesha's Harvesters too, still alive. Gonna be a bit of a problem, but I've killed off two of the single entities now for the Dark Elves. My caster though is in a bit of trouble. But let's see, how are things going? I have no more cavalry, and I think that's probably gonna be one of the main problems here. Of course, Ice Power doesn't have too much cavalry either, and it's basically just Marathi, but her Spirit Leeches are gonna be a pretty big problem. Or not her Spirit Leeches, but her Soul Stealers instead. As soon as my Chaos Spawn start disintegrating, it's gonna be a little bit of a dicey situation, as there is still a bit of mobility left for the Dark Elves. And it looks like my caster too, constantly getting hunted down by Marathi. I'll see if I can disengage with them, get them to a safer position. In the meantime, I'll try to chase off as much cavalry as I can. And then also begin grouping up with some of my forces here, which are not plentiful. And most of my money is in Mogre and my heroes. Still, Marathi is starting to get low. A Spirit Leech will come down. And oh man, there's still these Scourge Runner chariots too. That's basically one of the worst scenarios, as now the cavalry collapses in on my Gore Herd, and it looks like they will likely get routed off. A big Soul Stealer comes in too, and I bring in my Lord to try and, or my hero to try and keep the leadership up, but it looks like they're gonna be routing. Pretty bad. Marathi too, in the fight. A big Spirit Leech onto my forces, and essentially I need to, well actually it looks like the Gore Herd are just barely keeping it together. Apologies for the lag, it seems like I've been having some internet issues But I may be able to clutch it out if the gore herd survives. Does look like a few of these guys routed off, but hopefully I didn't disconnect. Fingers crossed. Come on, not like this. Alright, I guess we sit back, relax, and wait then. Is anyone in chat? Looks like possibly not. That's a worrying sign. Do I still have internet? Do still have internet. And there we go. Back in the game. Let's see if I can go ahead and rout off these cavalry units. Have my lord in the action. The gore herd are routing off some of these dark riders. Marathi is having a pretty hard time. Let's see. I have tons of spirit leeches too. You know what? Things may be possible here. Let's see. I guess I'll just need to continue spirit leeching her. Hello, Atrical. Okay, looks like internet reconnected. I'm going to keep spirit leeching Marathi. She is down on her soul stealers. But she does hit my spirit leecher, and it looks like that's likely gonna be it. Still though, a lot of my gore herd are still online and able to fight. It's just that this single unit of Scourge Runners is gonna be a huge problem. Running out of infantry is really bad. Marathi now diving in on Mogr. We'll see if she's able to finish him off, or if his combat stats will hold out here. Marathi is 55-40. Mogr is 37-36, but he also poisons, so there's a good chance he could still do well. I'm going to overcast Spirit Leech Marathi 2 with my caster before he routs, and the final battle is underway. Will Mogr be able to kill her off? Probably not, but he does land some hits, and it will come down to a bit of cycle charging to actually stop her from putting in too much damage. Still, the cycle charges will be pretty painful though. A few of my Ungor raiders get caught out too. I even have a half HP unit here that's gonna get routed off, which is pretty rough. Looks like Mogr is about to get killed off too. And leadership does hold. Marathi takes off again. And this charge should be able to finish him off. I don't see... Well, I could still get lucky, so I'm going to stick in the fight. But there we go. Ice Power calling GG as a Spirit Leech ends off the game. And that's gonna be it. A pretty close game, but I think in the end, not having any more Centaurs was really brutal for me. Take a look at the armies. Let's see. Yeah, if you look at the throwing axes, they got pretty punished. I spent a lot of time chasing the Corsairs, and I think that was probably a bad idea. I could have instead held my infantry back and waited out the battle a bit longer. Let's see. Alternatively, I'm not sure. I took a lot of losses chasing these Corsairs, and I think I might do that differently next time. The Spirit Leeches on the Manticores were good. I got in some... by killing them off, it got pretty close. But still, just the nice control of ice power, edging out on top, and mostly killing off all my cavalry with much cheaper cav. Dark Riders paying for themselves as much as my Centaurs did. So next game up against ice power, I have a bunch of skirmishers. It looks like he's gone for a bright wizard. Skarsnik may have to worry about fireballs, but in general, I think he should be a-okay given his high HP pool. I have a River Troll Hag 2 with Spirit Leeches, and first fireball comes down. Looks like it's going to be diving straight onto one of my artillery pieces to start out. Not the worst. I do have tons of artillery, so I'm not especially worried. And as for my spiders, I'm going to move them forwards, and then make sure that these knights can't dive into my backline. There is a Volkmar coming on in, and some handguns actually do pressure my spider skirmishers a bit, or my wolf rider skirmisher, so I'll have to pull away from that. And the hope is that these rock lobbers will do enough damage to finish off all of the handgunners. Another fireball comes in, we'll be sniping out another artillery piece, but of course not the worst, as there are limited fireballs. And eventually they will run out. Volkmar coming in too. I have my anti-large orc cavalry, which should do pretty well in that situation, and I think it's about time I move in for the frontline fight. My spiders are going to take to the flanks, and a banishment does come down. Thankfully, it does miss most of my troops, and the goal is breaking down this frontline fight as quickly as possible. I have tons of fanatics that will be able to help out in that situation, and Volkmar, he's not extremely mobile. I may be able to catch him out here too. So I'm going to surround him with my boar cavalry, and then I'm going to use my river troll hag to slow him down. Hopefully pinning him down and actually killing him. But a very important point is that I want to make sure that I'm shutting down the handguns while I do this. As Volkmar is, he is quite the scary force. He's going to be very hard to pin down, but with a rampage, I think I should be able to take him out. The fanatics are in on the fight too. I do get a few of my forest goblin spider riders caught out, but Volkmar is taking a lot of damage. I can also throw down my fanatics at this point, and that should be able to take out quite a few of the Empire infantry troops. Let's see, I'm still missing a unit of fanatics though. Yes, my ROR goblins are going to need to throw that down. And Volkmar looks like he is, he's going to be living. Definitely a pretty bad situation, as I did commit quite a bit to actually finish him off. And we'll see if he manages to set up a full escape here. He's at very low HP. The River Troll Hag does hit him for quite a bit. And it's looking like he's going to be actually dying. The combined efforts of the Greenskins working out okay. And now with Volkmar down, that's going to be a decent hit to their leadership. But they actually have spec'd into quite a few... the Greenskins, the Empire went for quite a few unbreakable troops. So the loss of Volkmar is going to be less impactful than I would have hoped. Still though, things are going okay. I still have a few fanatics lying around too. And Skarsnik is going to be quite the threat. There aren't a ton of units that can actually finish him off here. I think a fireball coming in onto Skarsnik will actually miss and hit the knights instead. This is going to be a very good situation for me. And I have some skirmishers too to chase off the remainder of the Empire infantry. I'm going to be keeping my mobility back and fairly safe. And I'm doing that because I very much want my mobile units to stay alive this game. They are so important for actually finishing off this much infantry. So that's going to be the goal. Just keeping them nice and far away from any possible threats. Now, speaking of threats, for the Empire, it's basically just a few handguns and their cavalry left that are truly threatening for me. So I'm feeling like I'll probably be pretty good. I can shut down the handgunners with my mobile units, and these Empire Knights can get finished off by my heroes. I have skirmishers to pressure them too, and the River Troll Hag with her slow will be able to pick them apart. Let's see here. There's a big cavalry charge though on my boar boys. It looks like Ice Power might be able to trade out fairly well there. But in this case, these Empire Knights should be going down. I still have a few rock lobbers too, and I'll use them, I guess, to start hitting. Oh man, there's actually a full HP unit of Empire Knights over here. That's pretty scary, but I think I should still be okay. Skarsnik is pretty low. Fireballs have done quite a bit of damage to him, but it's not the worst, as most of the fireballs actually went in on my artillery instead. So there shouldn't be too much winds of magic left for this caster, and I think I'll be able to pull through. My artillery is getting shut down, but I have routed off these knights. So with that, I think that's basically no more mobility for Ice Power. Although I am losing quite a few of my cavalry myself, I do still have my skirmishers. And they'll be able to chase off these Knights of the Blazing Sun. So I think I'm good. There are quite a few handgunners still left, and my skirmishers are running out of ammunition, but they're finally able to chase off the Knights. It looks like the caster still fireballing Skarsnik, but I took him because of his tankiness, so he'll be able to live, taking a bit of damage but nothing too crazy. And with that out of the way, I guess it's just closing out the game. There are still these silver bullets. They're going to be shooting down my fanatics, sadly. And what else? My rock lobbers, they will be able to man the artillery once again. But there's still a lot of infantry, which means that actually shutting down the silver bullets could be a little bit of an issue. Yeah, they might get surrounded by infantry. I don't have too much infantry of my own, so this is going to be pretty close. Still, I have the hero advantage. The River Troll Hag and Skarsnik will be very hard to kill. And the River Troll Hag specifically, with her Spirit Leeches, is going to be very hard to actually finish off. I'm going to start long-range Spirit Leeching this caster too. And that's just because the River Troll Hag is... oh wow, the Knights actually came back. Darn these goblins and their low chance of chasing off units. Their melee power with low ammunition is a little bit too low, and that actually let the Knights come back. A bit unfortunate, but I'm still doing okay. Specifically because I have this artillery, my rock lobbers, and I'm going to use that to force the Empire to advance. Skarsnik in the meantime is going to take to the trees, and then I'll just Spirit Leech this caster to death, hopefully pulling out the victory from there, since the loss of leadership is going to be pretty rough for most of these Empire forces. Especially with my skirmishers, I think I'll be okay. So let's see how well this rock lobber does. It'll take a while for the infantry to make it to me. And I do have 2 units of rock lobbers, and even a few orc boys too, to clean up anything I need to at the end of the game. So I think we just barely pulled it through. Mobility will be moving in, River Troll Hag just keeping away from the handgunners. And I'll want to start cycle charging with these guys. But of course the handgunners, there are the silver bullets in here, stealthed. So whichever angle I approach from, they'll likely be able to punish me on that front. It's going to be a little bit scary. The Bright Wizard 2, I'll want to continue Spirit Leeching him to get him into routing range, and then after all of that, then it should be enough to win out the game. Silver bullets do reveal themselves, so now know where they are, and I think I can probably shut down these handgunners just based on the position of my troops. My orc boys can now dive into combat, and I think I'm going to make my play now. The silver bullets have shot into my artillery, so they're going to be reloading, and we'll see if I can actually take out these handgunners. The goblins are diving in straight towards them, and they actually get gunned down pretty quickly. Not a great situation. And it looks like now they're turning to the River Troll Hag. She's going to be taking some shots. But I do finally shut down the silver bullets. That's definitely a huge plus. River Troll Hag is going to be trying to force path through onto these handgunners. And then my Wolf Rider archers are still doing okay. I'm going to turn on their ammunition and try and snipe out this Bright Wizard with them. Looks like a few shots coming on in, getting some pretty good damage. And as long as the River Troll Hag can escape these Empire Spearmen, I think I'm good. I do rout off 1 unit of handgunners. And will I be able to rout off the next is yet to be seen. But all in all, I think I done it. The leadership has broken thanks to the continued Spirit Leeches. And with the silver bullets now gone, it's just a matter of helping out Skarsnik and making sure that he doesn't die off here. There's still a lot of Empire spears. He is large, and those spears will eventually kill off Skarsnik if I'm not careful. So I'm going to get the River Troll Hag, charge these guys in the back, and hopefully break off their leadership. My Spider Riders are going to chase off any units that route. Looks like the Silver Bullets do route off too, thankfully. And my hero squad will be able to just barely win out this infantry fight. A very close game. Got a little bit scary in some situations, but the huge pick on Volkmar really helped me out. I do have a little bit of mobility left too, which is very important, as it's really good for cycle charging infantry. And it looks like the Bright Wizard is finally out of magic. No more fireballs are coming in on Skarsnik, and I'm really grateful that that he was targeting the artillery instead. Although things could have gone either way. And I think picking off the artillery could still be a good decision. Definitely a hard one to choose from. But there we go. Everything is routed off, and it's going to be army losses for the Empire. Oh boy. There we go. A very close game. And it did just come down to my ability to pick off Volkmar. I think my Spider Rider control was pretty bad. Yes, indeed it was. These guys essentially just died to the Knights of the Blazing Sun at the start of the game. And that was my major misplay. But losing Volkmar was much bigger for me. And in the end, that's all I really needed to pull out the win. Skirmishers did great, and even my cavalry paid for itself. Thank goodness for that. Oh, what that? Spud House? Ah, whoops. Whoops. Ice power. There we go. Slingers are gonna carry. Gorge smash. Oh my gosh, chat is... You guys. There's just so much going on right now. Let's hope your crazy ideas work with my crazy ideas. This whole build is sort of weird. Pretty janky. But I'm sure it'll be a fun game as long as we don't get completely run over. I have so much infantry. I should be able to do fairly well. I have enough tech to beat up stone trolls too. And I have my range units specifically, which are pretty great. The Teethbreakers specifically can snipe out targets, slow them down. And I guess that's my main way of shutting down cavalry. Good luck, have fun. Ice Power apparently has an abomination of a build too. So it looks like we'll be trading out pretty evenly. My army is set up. Let's go ahead and do this, guys. Ooh, alright. I'm mildly confident about the build. In theory, I should actually be able to win the front line fight fairly well. And there's not a lot of shenanigans Ice Power could really do to shut that down. So good luck, have fun, let's do it. The second game up against, or the third game up against Ice Power now. I'm playing as the Skaven up against his Greenskins. He has a few archers, and a few stone trolls, and a pretty cheap front line. Which is great for me because I've gone for a very elite infantry corps. The Plague Monk Center Bearers ROR. The Iksha's Triads to kill stone trolls, and a big old single entity blob to shut down the rest. Spirit Leeches coming down on my Rattling Guns because I forgot to stealth them. Pretty big misplay on my part. I stealthed them afterwards, but that was probably a bit too early since the cooldown is resetting for the Spirit Leech. A little bit unfortunate, but you know, I can just continue to advance. The Skirmishers will be shooting at my Skaven slaves, and that's honestly not too much of a problem. The Iksha's Triads too. I'm going to summon their doppelgangers and chase off these Skirmishers with them. And as for these Night Goblin Fanatics, I'll be pulling back with a few of my troops to make sure that they don't get too much damage on me. I'll hit them up with my hero squad, and that should be able to pretty easily shut them down. Fanatics do drop, but they barely get any damage at all, and this is a pretty nice initial trade. Gorich too, getting in some pretty good damage, and I have my Rattling Guns who are going to now focus fire these Skirmishers. So pretty good. Let's see if I can actually kill off these night goblins though. Another spirit leech does come down onto my teeth breakers, and it looks like they'll probably be going down. But not without getting a tiny bit of damage off. And I'm continuing to chase off the night goblins. And here we go. Stone trolls are now in the fight. Will I be able to shut them down? We'll have to see. What's this? My summons do go down, and I'm going to bring in my RORs. What's it? The Eshin triads to start pushing Grom back. This left flank should be won by me. I have tons of single entities there. They're doing quite good. Snicketch with his AoE too to kill off a few of those orcs. Looking pretty good. There are quite a few archers here though that I'll have to worry about. And let's see. I guess I'll throw down a few summons to go and deal with them. So that should work out pretty well. I'm going to continue advancing with my front line and just keep a few spears back to make sure that these skirmishers don't do too much. Let's see, the Plague Monk Sensor Bearers and the Triads too with their armor debuff should actually do pretty well in this fight. And now it's just seeing whether or not I can break through the front line to shut down the archers, because my Plague Priest is actually taking quite a bit of damage. A little bit uncareful with them, and he's already nearly dead. I'll have to dodge with him as much as I can. And hopefully he does okay. The front line does collapse though, thanks to Gorich, Snicketch, and the Plague Priest. Grom is in the back line too, but not especially scary. And I've routed off the trolls a couple times now, which is very good. As you only need to route them off 3 times before they shatter. Grom 2 is now completely surrounded. My right flank is collapsing, and I'm going to bring in the Plague Priest to try and assist in that situation. Hopefully he'll be able to win out the fight there with his combined effects. And you know what? I'm sensing that the River Troll Hag is actually pretty close to routing off. So I'm going to go and try and snipe her with Snicketch. I'll snare her. And then it's just going to be diving straight on in with Gorich. I have my infantry chasing off the archers. And let's see if this Plague Priest can survive. I'll throw down a few AoEs here and see if I can win this fight over here. It's definitely no guarantee. I do kill off the River Troll Hag at the very least, and it looks like the Stone Trolls are probably going to be routing off too. So that's very good. The River Troll Hag is now shattered. But there are still a lot of archers left for the Greenskins. Still though, I have a very elite army. Grom is let's see here. Grom is still at full HP, but I can approach towards him with Snicketch and Gorich at the very least. And after that, it's just finding a way of dealing with the archers. Grom 2 actually now gets surrounded, but does manage to escape. Not a full surround, and it looks like he'll be able to head on out of there. I still have my Plague Priest though. Gorich is still doing okay. And the Sensor Bearers have done surprisingly well. As is the idea with the build, it's all about having the melee advantage with my infantry, and that's been working out pretty well so far. Some mass routes too on all of the infantry is pretty great. Grom isn't in on the fight, but there are a ton of archers, and that is one of the main problems here. Gorich, at the very least, he will be able to route off, terror route a few of the trolls, and the low leadership of the Greenskins is hopefully going to be their downfall. Snicketch will be very hard to kill off, and as long as Gorich keeps dodging, the archer shouldn't be able to get too much damage onto him. Hopefully they'll run out of ammunition, but that is not going to be coming anytime soon. Let's see here. Some more skirmishers do come in. Grom the Paunch actually dives right in onto my troops, and we'll see if this is actually the end of him here. I can throw down a net that will pin him down. Gorich does get pretty low, but my infantry does win the fight, and we'll see if I can actually kill off Grom here. Let's see. Gorich's leadership is dipping though, and a few spiders come on in. It's looking pretty bad, and he routes off before I can give him his unbreakable. That is definitely really bad. And the archer fire looks like they'll be routing off the mighty Gorich. Very unfortunate. And now it's just Snickich, Grom, and 2 stone trolls to deal with a bunch of archer support too. Definitely a pretty scary situation. What I would do for a few wolf rats here, but we'll continue to fight. Snickich is still a pretty scary target, but it looks like that likely will not be enough to take out the army. He does have an AoE in a second, but my caster goes down. And I think that's it, guys. I think Ice Power did manage to pull through a victory. Let's see, my next AoE is in 30 seconds, but a little bit too late. GG, well played. And that's going to be the win for Ice Power. Not going for a rush, going for an archer build. Exactly, a really solid build against single entities. And as you can see, it worked out pretty well. The Teeth Breakers, sadly, not really getting their value. I think they would have done better in a rush, but the delayed game really just let them get, Spirit Leech to death, which was really rough. And the real heroes here are these archers. Really good against the Plague Priest and Gorich. And surprisingly enough, Gorich did actually pay for himself, which is pretty nice. I think, had I microed better, there could have been a decent chance, but there we go.